Hello, everyone, and welcome back to A Voice of Truth. I'm your host, Elisa, and something today told me to come on here and tell another bit of my story to kind of go a little more into the period of time that I was very ill. I was like, all right, I'll do it. So here we go. A lot of y'all know, if you've been following me for a minute, some of y'all already know about some of my history when it comes to Houston, Texas. What happened in 2014, a traumatic event that occurred that changed my life forever. And I think I did mention a little bit about how I think I ended up sick with an autoimmune illness known as ulcerative colitis that deals with the gut, and it's essentially the sister to Crohn's disease. So if y'all know what Crohn's disease is, think of it as a sister to Crohn's. That's exactly what ulcerative colitis is. Instead of it affecting the entire digestive like Crohn's does, it typically only stays in the colon. But I have heard of some cases that were a little more extensive than that, but I think that's somewhat rare. Anyway, I was about 22 years old. This was in 2015, in June of 2015. And there was a period of time that I ended up lactose intolerant, or I should say, I ended up lactose intolerant, where I noticed that milk was hitting my stomach wrong. I thought, what? It didn't really surprise me though, due to the fact that my mom is also lactose intolerant, and there are a few other family members in my family that are lactose intolerant. So I didn't really worry about it. I didn't think much of it. I thought, okay, well, that's fine. So I stopped drinking milk, and a lot of my symptoms went away. But then there were others that followed shortly thereafter. I noticed that anytime I went, number two, there was traces of blood. And so I thought, okay, why is that happening? And before I knew it, it just got worse, and I ended up with my very first flare up. I'd probably say that following November, I ended up feeling really rough. I had no idea what was going on. I was going to the bathroom a lot. My stomach was hurting all the time. I didn't know what was happening to me. I didn't know why it was happening to me either, but I digress. The situation came up for me to start doing a little bit of my own investigation. During this period of time, since Houston happened, I had a lot of money taken from me by my dad and this woman. A lot of money and a lot of my material things, all the things that I had when I was there were taken from me. And they probably sold it, or they gave it to her kids or something like that. Whatever happened to my stuff, I don't know, but I had furniture, I had the whole nine. A lot of those things were taken from me, and he kept asking me, my dad kept asking me for a lot of money. So that was taken from me too. I had a couple of thousand saved, a couple of $1,000s saved at that time, but he kept asking me for money. So I ended up giving it to him without question. He came up with whatever, and I said, okay, here you go, Dad. Right. And before I knew it, I had nothing saved. I thought, wow, nothing saved at all. So anyway, since I didn't have anything saved and I was pretty much pushed out into the cold, as it were, I had to As I had said before, I was kicked into survival mode. So I had to do what I had to do. And that meant that I had to start working a whole bunch and I had to do all these things for myself, which, I mean, I was an adult anyway. But the problem was is that my dad didn't want me to learn I guess the basics of the real world. He never wanted me to be told about any of that. Um, when I was 16, I think my mom wanted to talk to me about it, and she asked my dad, and he said no. Let's not talk to her about it. So essentially, what happened in Houston should have never happened, at least according to my mom. She said, no, that was never supposed to happen. That I would have never gone for that. That is not what me and him agreed on. And I wanted to have this conversation with you when you were a teenager, but he didn't want to talk about it. Not with you for whatever reason. So I was pushed out in the cold. I didn't really know how to fend for myself. I just had to learn as I went. So this survival mode was really tough. There were times I had to sleep in my car. Dealing with all of these things, not having a stable home life, bouncing from couch to couch to couch, from house to house to house, from person to person, from family member to family member. Um, I ended up with this illness in the meantime. And this illness was, again, I had no idea what was happening to me. So I took it up with the internet and I looked into it. And I should say that me and my friend I talked about in the last video, the one that took his own life, he helped me look into it. And so while we were at work, because I actually found a job through him, and so I started working at that same place that he worked at. During our downtime, we were looking into this. And he said it almost sounds like inflammatory bowel disease. And so he was asking me all these things. We were going through symptoms. We were going through all these different things. And he said, that's what it sounds like to me. And I told him, I was like, well, this really sucks. And it really did. Again, no idea why this was happening. And by this period of time, November of 2015, I was already with my current husband at this point. We had just gotten together the previous month before that, right? So October 3rd is our anniversary. And yeah, we ended up together at that time. And he didn't quite understand what was going on with me. And it took him a while to, I guess, grasp it, but he ended up understanding over time. I considered myself lucky because I didn't understand the full scope of it myself, but I did have an idea of what this was going to take for somebody else to be in my life, for a partner's perspective. And I did not expect him to stick around. I didn't have health insurance. That's where I was going to go after talking about Houston and how all this money was taken from me. I didn't have insurance. I didn't have, the money for it because I kept bouncing from job to job to job, home to home to home. By the time I had gotten with him, I already had a stable home life. But inside, here and here, it was not stable in any stretch of the imagination. So I had to deal with a lot. I had to understand what was going on with me physically, what happened to me on an emotional and mental level. Um, I had to deal with all this crap, right? And then there came a situation where I was forced into getting like more of a career going for myself. I had to do something because this job jumping that I was doing for a period of time, I had to do something. So I became a certified nurse aide. And it didn't take me long to acquire my CNA license. Um, Once I had gotten that CNA license, I had a job pretty much anywhere at any nursing home, any facility that I needed to be at. And I ended up getting health insurance, but I still did not go. I still did not go to the doctor. I still did not look for help. In the beginnings of our relationship, he gave me ultimatums, and he was really worried about my health at the time, and he wanted me to go get medical help and whatever. And eventually there came a point in time where he realized, okay, I'm sorry, I won't be so pushy anymore, because I told him I don't like this. Coming from the background that I had at the time, I did not like this way that he handled it. And I told him, you need to back off. You need to stop, whatever. And we got into big fights over this. Again, I did not expect him to stick around, mostly because of the illness, because I had an idea and an understanding that this was going to be tough for him too. And I expected him fully at this point to walk out. Year after year went by, he never did. And I thought, wow, okay, I consider myself lucky. Um, so what happened was I spent a lot of my time trying to ignore that this illness was happening to me, trying to ignore it, didn't want to really acknowledge that my life was going to go down the shithole, if you will. Um, I had no idea. I didn't really know what to expect. In 2017, I ended up with a spot on the back of my leg that turned out to be cellulitis. And I didn't think anything of this spot. I just knew that it was like a flat bump. You know, it felt like a flat bump, like a bump underneath the skin. So it was hard, significantly hard, and it was red. It was inflamed, and it was kind of itchy. So I would scratch it every so often, and it started off as it looking like a bite, and then all of a sudden it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And before I knew it, working overnights at this one facility, I had a resident, because I worked in the male unit, and one of the male residents, had swatted at me, almost hit me physically. And so I backed up just in time. But when I had backed up, that spot on my leg was uh, hit by the wheelchair. I had bumped into the wheelchair, hitting that spot at the same time, and it hurt like hell. I remember almost yelling, because that's how much it hurt. I didn't bother to look at it, but I felt it right away. By this point, I probably had it for about 2 weeks. So when I had gotten home, I got in the shower. This was early in the morning, and I was going through a flare up at this time. I do remember it flaring up around the same time that this spot on the back of my leg has shown up. And so what happened was, in the shower, I'm doing my thing, right? Just water running over it hurt. And I didn't get a really good look at it until I was ready to go to bed. At this point, I think it was in December 2017. So what happened was, when I had looked at it real good, I had realized that there were some black spots in the middle of it. This thing was huge. It's like it grew overnight, and just lightly touching it sent me screaming pretty much, I mean, not actually screaming, but in my head, I was like, ah, it hurts so bad. And I thought, holy crap, I don't like this. I know enough to realize that this is some sort of a staph infection. So I went and I had to go to my nearest ER. So that's exactly what I did, because at the time, my doctor's office, or the place I was going to for, infections and whatever else that I needed looked at the time, uh, they had told me that the doctor had left early that day. So I had no choice but to go to the ER. The ER took a look at me and they said, okay, um, we're going to do some tests and we're going to check this out and whatever. And that's when I started telling my doctors about what was going on with my stomach. And so the doctor was very concerned at this point and said, I want to admit you to the hospital. I said, okay. Or, I'm sorry, it was an urgent care, I guess. I don't remember. It's been so many years. So he said, I want to admit you to the hospital because the situation is that, we had an ultrasound done on your leg. There was nothing found. Um, so, and with all of these things going on with your stomach right now, I would feel much better with you being hospitalized. I was hospitalized for a couple of days. During that time, they put me on mesalamine and some other medications, and they had also found out what that spot was on my leg, and it ended up being the cellulitis. So they put me on, what do you call it, an antibiotic for it, and it got better and it went away. I still have a scar back there, but anyway, so that was the first major flare up that I had. They told me that they suspected it was ulcerative colitis. That was enough for me at the time. I said, okay, that's fine, because I still at this point could not afford health insurance, and I didn't bother pursuing it after, or I should say, before my first hospital stay. In 2020 was another major flare up. This one was much worse. I did not go to the hospital for this one, but I know it put me out of commission for a while. Initially, it was only for a few weeks, but the problem is that the facility I worked at during that time, there was a stomach bug that was going around, so I ended up catching it, and I ended up, even though I was getting better, I ended up sick again. It had been years before this period that I had thrown up. Guys, nothing makes me throw up. Nothing. I'll get nauseous, but nothing makes me throw up. This made me throw up. And I threw up 2 or 3 times before I got to my house. Fortunately, by the time I started throwing up, I only had 45 minutes on the clock left at work, so I went ahead and just stayed until it was over. By the time that my relief showed up, I was extremely relieved, and so I took off. Got home, and my cat was very happy to see me. I had to push her out of the way because the minute I opened my car door, bleh, right, it was funny because she backed away. She went over and kind of sniffed at it. She was like this. She looks up at me like, like, what's wrong with you? So I went into the house, and I would probably say by the time I got to the house, I was 100-degree fever. I had 100, no, it was 100 degrees. So I ended up falling asleep on the couch. I didn't even bother getting in the shower because I did not have the physical strength to do this. But I did lay on the couch. I had enough strength to change my clothes. And I passed out for a little while. By the time I woke up, fever had gotten worse. I check it again and I was at 102 or 103. So it kept climbing up. I told my mom about it. She was in the kitchen at the time. She said, "Okay, do you need me to grab you anything?" I was like, "Yeah, could you give me some Tylenol?" So I ended up taking that, and this took me a few months to get over, but I finally got through that. My illness did not get bad until, I guess, the following year. In 2021, it got real bad. 2021 was also the year that some people in my family, or no, some people in my life back then, I had to cut loose because I had realized around this time that they were not out for my best interest. They did not care about the type of position in life that they put me in. I had to realize that even though I tried to mend the broken relationship between me and my dad, I had to understand that it was a one road type thing. I was the only one putting effort into it. I was the only one that cared enough to put any effort into it. And then on top of the fact, he was still running his mouth and putting me down in any way that he possibly could, while expecting me to be there for him on an emotional level for whatever sick and twisted reason, I don't know. But at that point, I had to understand that he was a user and an abuser as well. I had to come to that realization that the people around me at that time were not favorable. They didn't really truly care about my well-being at all. Because somebody that I was friends with at this period in time, I was friends with him for a number of years. I had to realize that this person was only in it for themselves. And I had to cut ties with this person because I had to also realize that he too was a user and an abuser. And I'm going to put it this way. And I don't want anyone to forget what I'm saying right now. I want y'all to listen very good. Anybody who tells you that they are spiritually awakened, understand what it's like to be used and abused. And they would never dare, if they have integrated their shadow and learned the lessons that they were supposed to learn, and learned the lessons and actually integrated those lessons into their personal life, they would never dream of putting you in an Eight of Swords energy, if you will. An Eight of Swords energy is keeping you stuck, keeping you blinded, keeping you, I guess, in a sense, stupid, but not really stupid. Keeping you in that Eight of Swords energy. Just tied up, just, you know, lost and confused and, whatever. That's what Eight of Swords energy is. Blindfolded character with their hands tied behind their back in the middle of the Eight of Swords around them. They are kept prisoner, essentially. They would never dream of putting you in that position. They would never dare to do that. This person claimed that they were spiritually awakened, but their actions, their rhetoric proved otherwise. And if somebody is saying one thing but treating you differently than what they are preaching at you about, because if they're preaching at you, then there's something not right. But if they're talking to you and they're putting you down and they're also, telling you that you're weak and that you're stupid, or whatever it is, there's something not right. Because anyone that's even spiritually enlightened, at least the slightest bit, wouldn't put you in that position. Because we ourselves have been put in that position our whole lives. We know what that's like. Okay? We know what that's like. Anybody that's been abused in any way or used or whatever, we know not to ever do that. And we would never dare. But he did it to me. And I let him. I had to understand that this person was full of shit. That he was not who he claimed he was. So I had to cut him out. And I did. I told Spirit around that same time, maybe before that, because I started becoming spiritually aware. I told Spirit, I am ready for a change. Being somebody that did not very favorable things in the craft, because I was an active practitioner around this time, and I had been for several years. I let my ego trap me, and I racked up numerous karmic points. And when I had said that I was ready, that's when things changed. Not right off the bat. It took a few months. September, there was a situation at nighttime. I had fallen asleep, and I wasn't asleep for very long. Next thing I know, so I had my bedroom door open. Me and my mom lived in the same house together. Her room was all the way the opposite side of that house. I kept my door open because it got hot in the room at night. My cat was in the room with me. She was sleeping at the foot of the bed at the time. I had passed out watching a video on YouTube or something, and I was laying flat on my back. I felt a hand on my chest. And so I started doing this, feeling around. I started waking up around this time. And upon waking up, I had this sense of danger, this uneasy feeling, this uneasy, whatever you want to call it. I felt like I was in danger. And I looked around, nobody was there. And I know for a fact my mom would never just sneak into my room like that, because that's just not what she does. That's never been her. That's not anything that she does. So I knew something was wrong. I had made a bad decision the year prior. So I want y'all to keep that in mind, okay? So anyway, I thought I had gotten away from any repercussions of this I guess you could say, this ridiculous spell that I had done the year prior. I thought that I had escaped repercussions from this, because I'm not going to publicize what I did, but what I did was very, 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 very foolish. At the time, I was helping a friend out, thinking that, she would stick around, but she didn't. Doing this spell that she asked me to do, I helped her with it by doing it, by being the one who did it. And she still had this audacity to just up and leave. So it left me in a bad situation. I shouldn't have done it, but I did it anyway. So don't forget that. because there's a reason why I'm talking about it. So it was after this random touch that I had woken up in September of 21, thinking that, oh my God, I'm in danger. And after this night, I woke up every hour on the hour from nightmares, from bad feelings, from anxiety. I mean, a level of anxiety I had never felt before this period in time. A level of anxiety that when I was waking up, my heart was racing, um, and I was out of breath, like something horrible was about to happen. By the time that October rolled around, I had gotten sick. And it went on, it was bad from the beginning. It was really bad from the beginning. My nausea was next level. The pain was next level. The amounts of blood that I was losing was next level. I mean, it was to a point I had never seen it before. I never thought that this level of sickness was ever possible for me. To be quite frank with you, there were a few times I thought I was going to die. There was this one particular night that I had woken up, and understand, in October, I was in a full on flare. So I was waking up several times a night. Actually, not even several times a night. I was going several times. Anytime I came out of the bathroom, I kept getting up, going in there, getting up, going in there, getting up, going in there, getting up, going in there. And I was doing this at least 40 times a night. I went through big cases of bottled water. Okay, my mom had gotten one or two of these big cases of bottled waters. And every morning, that trash can, although it was small, that trash can was full to the top. And I still felt like I was coughing out dust. This was next level shit. I'm not even kidding. Quite literally, next level shit. And every night this was happening. And this one night, I had gotten up, and it's like I was losing track of time. And I was forgetting, or somehow I was moving in my sleep. I don't even understand what was happening. I just remember hearing my heart pounding in my ears. I couldn't eat around this period in time. I just kept drinking a bunch of water, and nothing was quenching my thirst, not even Gatorade. All of these things that I was trying, that I was attempting, nothing was working. Nothing was working. Everything was just going against me. And I had gotten up, and I went into the bathroom, and I had what do you call it? One of those covered hampers in there, in that bathroom at the time. And what I was doing, since my stomach was hurting so bad, I was moving it this way, and I was putting my head down. And there were a couple of times I almost fell to the floor because I had fallen asleep. But here's the thing: I would stand up, clean up, wash my hands really good, go lay down. What threw me was when I would open my eyes, I was in the bathroom, not remembering how I even got there. Because the last memory that I had was cleaning up and going back to bed. Every time I went into the bathroom, though, which was several times in an hour, at least, throughout the entire night, barely got any sleep. The circles under my eyes were so bad, and the bags under my eyes were so bad. And I remember barely being able to get up, barely having enough strength in my legs and my body. I just felt so weak. Every time I got up, I thought I was going to hit the floor. And then the next thing I know, Every time I opened my eyes, I was either in the bathroom or the bed, not having any recollection of how I even got there. Even though it had kind of slowed down a little bit, the activity would kind of slow down a little bit for a while. I was laying there for about 30 minutes trying to go back to sleep, but I couldn't because the pounding in my ears, it was becoming very alarming. Something just was not letting me sleep. So, some sort of, I don't know, something in my head was not letting me sleep. And I thought, okay, something's not right. I need to do something right now. And I thought, with all the blood loss, I'm sure that I'm iron deficient. So I went and grabbed an iron tablet. I took it with some orange juice, and I ended up falling asleep after that. It took about half an hour, but all of a sudden, that pounding wasn't so bad. So I ended up falling asleep after that, and I woke up and I didn't have any of that pounding noise in my ears whatsoever. Um, but understand, I don't think I was asleep for longer than an hour. So I was continuously doing this for a number of months. I do remember that there was this medication. I did not have a specialist yet, but there was this medication that I had asked for that slowed a lot of things down for a short period of time. Around the holidays, I could not get it refilled. I still didn't have insurance at this time. And I could not get this prescription refilled because it was the holidays and this prescription was very expensive. So I just let it go and I thought, well, I'll be okay until I'm able to get more, until the holidays are over. I didn't worry about it. Christmas came. For some reason, my stomach was hurting really bad. It was around this time, maybe a little bit before that. I was having horrible cramping. And the consistency began to change, the color, everything about it began to change. The bathroom habits changed in not a good way. As if I didn't have enough issues before this. There was a short little lull because of that medication I was on. And I think I was still taking it. No, I might have already run out. But anyway, so I thought, okay, I don't know what this is. I guess it's coming back. I didn't worry about it though. January came, and sometime in January there was a night, probably say in the middle somewhere. Understand, I was still working 5 days out of the week. And at one point, I was working 2 jobs, even though I felt sick as a dog. And I was actually feeling feverish this one night in January of 2022. And so I go to bed the minute I get home. I didn't even shower. I wasn't working at a facility, but I was working for a place that didn't require so much of me physically. And I'd been there for a minute and I was trusted there and everything was fine. My hours were really good. There was not a lot of physical activity there, so I wasn't really worried about passing out or anything like that, despite seeing spots all the time. I lay down this one night and I started praying to whoever or whatever heard me at the time. At the time, I didn't realize that prayer didn't work that way. But I digress. And I cried this one night because I begged to not wake up. I didn't want to do it anymore because it had been since October the previous year. Maybe, well, actually, I should say September of the previous year because I started having trouble. And I was crying so hard and I was begging so hard to not wake up the next day. because I didn't want to do it anymore. After that, my world began to go black, as I call it. Meaning that it's like I was on autopilot the entire time. And I was not really able to remember a whole lot of what was going on. A lot of my memory began to fade, and I just went on autopilot. I didn't care at this point. I remember still going to work, despite not being able to stay awake at times, despite not being able to really do much for myself physically. I was still showing up to work. This one night in January, my mom had asked me, because we had a little tiny house on the property, and she had furnishings in this little house. And she had asked me, would you be willing to help me get this furniture out because I found a renter? I said, absolutely. Even though, again, I was seeing spots. But she asked me to help her on the weekend. I said, that's fine. So I did that. The problem is that before this period of time, she knew that I was sick and that I had been sick for a number of months at this time, but she didn't see, I guess, the extensive way it was affecting me at the time. She didn't really see the whole picture until the day I helped her move the furnishings. Reason being was, my entire life before this point, I was very physically capable and physically strong. Being able to pick up heavy things and even heavy people because my job required that. I was capable, very physically capable, but for some reason, I couldn't do it. Well, I shouldn't say for some reason, because we know why. But she's seeing the full scope of how sick I am. And I had to stop every few steps. And I had to say, please give me a minute. And I had to catch my breath. And she looked at me and she said, baby, I'm so sorry. I had no idea it was this bad. And so I had to stop every couple of steps, catch my breath. And she completely realized at that point how bad off I really was. After that, she stopped asking those types of things. And she told me, she kept apologizing to me that day. And she kept saying, I had no idea it was this bad. I had no idea it was this bad. I didn't realize it was like this. Take your time. If you need to sit down, take your time. And I don't really remember any of my responses. I don't remember if I gave her any responses. I just remember continuously going to the bathroom, trying to deal in the best way possible. And I do remember her making a lot of concessions and apologizing the entire day. Sometime after that, or around the same time, I started having issues in my leg. A different leg this time. And the problem is that it felt like I had pulled a muscle. So I didn't really worry about it, even though I had noticed in a couple of days that this pain was getting worse, and my leg was beginning to swell up. Again, didn't worry about it because my world at this point was going black. I didn't care at this point. I stopped giving a shit about certain things. And then there came a period where my mom saw me limping, and she just started losing it after this. And she started crying, and she started begging me to go to the hospital. And she kept telling me, you don't look right, there's something wrong, there's something wrong, there's something wrong. And I'm like, no, I'm fine. I was very arrogant at that period in time in my life, thinking, no, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. Don't worry about it. And so I told her, no, I'm not going to the hospital right now. This was in February. That I do remember. And so she said, all right, that's fine, whatever. But she wanted me to go really bad. She helped me. Now, I want to make it clear that in 2022, I did get insurance. I did get health insurance. So she was encouraging me to find a doctor. And I think after me helping her with this furniture and her seeing me limping and stuff actually got her to uh, help me find a doctor because I was forgetting stuff all the time. I was just in autopilot. I didn't care about things. Uh, I don't know if she hounded me about it, but I'm sure she did. I don't really remember if she hounded me during that time to get a doctor. I just don't remember that. But I do remember that I went to a physician because I did not have a PCP, but I went to a physician and they ordered a CBC and they had me uh they wanted me to see a specialist, a gastroenterologist for this whole thing. And I showed them my leg, and so the girl said, "Okay, I really want you to get that checked." And so she wrote me a lab order to get an ultrasound on that leg. So what happened was after this, the following day, the CBC results came back. And right away, they had me get hospitalized. My mom came home. She had just gotten to work, but she came home in a rush. And she woke me up and I said, "What's wrong?" And believe it or not, I was actually going to take a day off this day. And I had told both of my bosses I'm not going to make it. I won't be able to make it. Actually, no. I only told one boss because I only had one person to take care of that day. But I told him that I couldn't make it. I was feeling really bad. And so he said, "Don't worry about it, take care of you." So I had every plan to sleep the rest of the day, to rest, you know. And so she comes home early in the morning. She wakes me up. And I said, "What's wrong?" And she said, "We need to get you to the ER right now." And I said, "Why?" She said, "Your doctor has been trying to get in touch with you today." She said that your uh your hemoglobin and everything is extremely low. It's below 7. Your hemoglobin is at 5. So what? And I know enough about the human anatomy and about health and everything like that. I know enough to realize that that is not okay. It is never supposed to be below 7. And so I thought, what? And she said, "Your hematocrit is this." And I don't even remember what she said my hematocrit, what my hematocrit was. I just remember her saying that all of my levels were in the red. I was like, oh my God. So she rushed me to the ER, and the ER checked my leg and they said, "You have blood clots in your leg." Like, what? So I have blood clots in my leg. They checked my lungs in a CT scan with contrast, and it lit up, showing a bunch of teeny tiny pulmonary embolisms all over the place in my lungs, just scattered about. And they said, "This is a medical emergency. We need to admit you right now." I was admitted to the hospital right after that, and I was there for an entire week. And by that time, it was March of 2022. So I was there, and they put me on heparin. They did all of these things. They put me on a blood transfusion. I had to get 3 units of blood, and it still barely bumped me up past 8. Uh, so it was a whole mess. I ended up getting a gastroenterologist. It was not the one that my doctor had told me about. It was not the one that she wanted me to go to. but it was a different one that was connected with the hospital I had been to. And he came, and I had actually seen him before this, and it was back in 2017. Um, I didn't really like him at that period in 2017. Something about him just kind of threw me. But in 2022, being as sick as I was, my intuition and everything was, I was not connected to anything at that time. I was too sick to care about really anything outside of just getting help. And so, yeah, it was this whole thing. This doctor did not do well by me at all. His bedside manner was really bad. He was not the doctor for me. My health, from the time I was in the hospital and for a few months there, my health just went further and further down. He just did not help me in the way that he should have. I finally went to the doctor that my PCP wanted me to go to. And when I went to this guy, he got me on medications right away. He did all the whole nine. He looked into my background, he did everything, and right away, uh well, over time I started getting a little better. But other things had to happen though. I think I'd mentioned this before, but I don't remember in what video. I just remember mentioning that there was evidence of a spirit that was taken out of me. And looking at the time of this video, I will have to continue this tomorrow because I'm getting really tired right now and I've already shared enough. So I will continue this video either tomorrow or the following day, probably tomorrow. But that's where I'm going to leave it, because understand that even though I was on 80 milligrams of prednisone and budesonide around this time, um, the pain was getting worse. Medications were not helping. So I'm going to end it there. Thanks for listening to this video. And if you're not already, subscribe to the channel. Come back. I will be doing a part 2 of this. So everyone have a good night and stay safe.